Hey everyone, welcome back to more videos on Doctor Who now the new season's started kicking off and gotten more than halfway through, and I'm sorry life's been busy. But anyway, this is going to be part 1 of my season 14 review series. This video is going to contain episodes 1 and 2, then I'm going to do a part 2 containing episodes 3, 4 and 5. And then finally a part 3 containing the rest of the season. Anyway, let's get into part 1 of my Doctor Who Season 14 review series, starting with episode 1. And I'm going to be honest, I did not like this episode very much, but I do have writing-based reasons, and it's not about wokeness or prejudice or stuff like that, so do bear with me, and there are bits I liked, so I will go over why I overall didn't like this episode, what bits I liked, bits I didn't like. Let's get into it. And the bits I didn't like kicked off right from the start, really, with a rubbish opening with consistent reiteration of lore, and worst of all, reiteration of all the timeless children stuff, which I really wish would just go away. It was shit. Flux was shit, and constant recall to them does not make them any better. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. Ruby's reactions to the TARDIS was also a bit rubbish for me. It seemed very underwhelmed to me, and more of a reaction to the Doctor's alien nature, which we had explained before in her debut episode, The Church on Ruby Road, so it was a bit odd that she was still reacting to his alien nature more so than the TARDIS when she walked in. And we didn't really get her full-on reaction because they were just in the TARDIS already. Furthermore, bad explanation of rules of time travel and examples of time travel with the butterfly effect compensation switch thing. I'm not going to go too far into this because I will go on a rant and I probably will cry out of sadness at being a Whovian for most of my young life. But the butterfly compensation switch thing genuinely made me and a friend want to cry when he explained it. A 20-second joke bricks the logic of time travel of Doctor Who in so many ways, it's astounding. Paradoxes like River Song couldn't happen if a paradox compensation switch exists, because they are talking about the butterfly effect, the butterfly paradox, as well as a dead butterfly at that point. Backwards paradoxes like Father's Day and the risks of Rose seeing her father. Well, anything the Doctor saves when they leave an area. That then means that the paradox didn't happen, which means, I don't know, Daleks happen, unless they happen through temporal shifts. But Daleks arrive under their own power, and then they destroy a city, the Doctor stops them. The city still ends up destroyed because the TARDIS compensates for any paradoxes, including itself. It's so fucked. A 20-second joke fucks an entire show's time travel logic. Time travel just can't happen. A small joke just bricks the need for time travel and bricks River, it bricks everything as a whole. It's a timey-wimey backwards paradox. It just felt like it kind of killed it and genuinely made me and a friend wish to cry. It was pathetic, it was horrible, I hated it, it was genuinely so sad. But anyway, because it's just unbearable and destroyed a legacy of time traveling mythos for this show, because the time travel in this show now makes no sense. Because the Doctor states that they turn it on every time they've got a new TARDIS. They just hadn't yet. It's so dumb every time the TARDIS reconstructs itself, and he just hadn't done it, and the Doctor hadn't done it yet. But ignoring that and pretending that joke doesn't exist and it doesn't break the plot, which it does, and Russell, that was a terrible thing to do. But ignoring that, even though you can't, the episode continues with sadness as a whole, the whole baby farm thing. Possibly a good storyline with space migration, and the plot and the political side of things didn't bother me. Them talking about refugees having a difficult fate in the universe, that didn't bother me. It's just trying to get the audience to have empathy for an actual real world issue, which isn't really a problem. It just wasn't executed well in the storyline itself. Like the messaging itself, and they move on to the messaging and go into the storyline. They didn't bat you over the head with it. It was fine. The messaging is fine. But the storyline personally just wasn't executed well enough. For me personally. What did you guys think on that one? But I am going to explain my reasoning. Obviously, going back to my reasonings for why the storyline didn't work so well, the main hook is they have a ship, as in the TARDIS, and they need to get past the monster in the hall. to get to a planet, to get them asylum, to get them safety so the babies aren't just coming out and there's nothing to do with them. And they need to reboot the power somehow to make the engine. This makes sense. This is a Doctor Who plot we've seen before with space travelling stuff. But I'm now convinced that Russell T Davies is instructed not to write endings because it just doesn't work. Firstly, the whole thing that the AI was creating the monster from a story thing, and how things wrapped up in general just lacked the Doctor explanation that it needed. It lacked the tech explanation that it needed. And how the fuck would they land? Like, okay, so you've rerouted the methane from the babies, which is just really okay, yeah, enough jokes about babies and poop. We didn't need this. But you rerouted that, it powers it apparently, and the ship literally farts itself forward, which isn't really funny, it's just dumb. But how would they land? Because right now the only thing that's working is the motion of the engine. Everything else is screwed. How would you know to engage landing gear through normal flight procedures? Because as far as the ship is concerned, it's not in normal flight procedures. It's just being pushed forward, and they're without full power. It doesn't work, and they have landing gear. It doesn't work in execution that we see on screen. It just needed more of that Doctor explanation for me and for it to work. And the redemption of the monster and the kids caring for its needs and the Doctor saying your favourite monster is fine and it howling around. It was just so rushed. It needed more time. There wasn't much time to care about the story. And people say it doesn't matter about caring about the story. In this case, it's a companion gets used to companion stuff episode, but I'd say Ruby in this showed herself not to be a very good companion at all, because she lied to very young children, and one of those children nearly got themselves killed because of it. And they trusted Ruby because they were the only thing. Ruby was the closest thing to a parental figure they'd seen in God knows how long. Also, if they've been here for so many years, why do they still look like babies? That also doesn't make any sense. There's a lot about this that doesn't make sense. And the Doctor wanting to save the monster makes sense because it's the very, very last of its kind thing. But say you find them a planet with humanoid life that knows how to take care of Earth-based humans just as much as the Earth would, and it's like, yeah, we can take you in. What do they think it's going to do with a monster that's designed to scare you the moment it looks at you, and they think they want to flee in terror? What are adults going to do with that? Kill it. I honestly don't know why the Doctor saved it. I know why the Doctor wanted to, but why did the Doctor not just go, okay, you're safe, which, by the way, they're not. They're not going to be able to land on that planet very well. And why did the Doctor not just guide them in to make sure the landing worked for a start, because that's what the Doctor would do, or fly something through the TARDIS controls like he did in the Stolen Earth, so they, as the Doctor, could just do the similar thing here. And why didn't they do that? Because the propulsion thing makes some sense, even though it's dumb and lacks the whole drooling on the shirt, simple explanation. It lacked the Doctor finesse of the explanation that it needed. That's not Ncuti Gatwa's fault. I think Ncuti Gatwa is doing a brilliant job with what he is being given. The issue comes, and it is the script, the issue comes with what he's being given is shit. And it's just not good. The dialogue isn't good. It doesn't pull me in as well. The plot line, the messaging, the intention, all fine with. The execution of this, terrible. And yet, why do they care about the monster? Not explained. Adults are going to kill that thing on sight. If the Doctor was going to save it, why did it not guide it into the TARDIS and bring it to a planet with similar monster bipedal looking things that might not have judged it so harshly? You could easily have invented that and given it a couple minutes just to round things off in a better way. But it also doesn't explain why the kids were no longer scared. The nanny character is like, that was fine, but I think that people are saying that she's the explanation as to why the kids were no longer scared, but that doesn't really work because the monster is literally designed to be scary as all heck. But yeah, okay, so that's my thoughts on that. It was just so many. It would have been kinder to let the monster die if the Doctor was just going to leave. That's the sad thing. And the whole refugee thing, the messaging side of things is fine, but the whole argument in practice of how they executed it, of this is the fate of every refugee in the universe, which I think was just a line put there to make people feel a bit more compassionate towards refugees and current issues, which was fine as a line, but in universe, it's like, what are they going to do? Fly around everywhere, fly around everywhere and say, you know, do you want to leave? And then if there's an invading war, if there's a warlord or a dictator-based force on that planet, they'll then start an interplanetary war. We can't go in as aid workers. We can go in as aid workers to aid the country, but we can't go in as aid workers and say, do you want to leave? Do you want to go? And then try and take them by force if their leaders don't want them to. So, of course, it's the ill-fated thing of every refugee in the universe, and it's horrible and we should be more compassionate, and that's the message you were going for. But if you're in universe going to say that they should do better, then what's the in-universe and later translating the outer message that we should do better? You didn't present a practical alternative to the system we already have, and in any fact they went with the system anyway, and things ended up, according to the episode logic, relatively fine, although that ship is not going to land safely. But anyway, yeah, so the messaging overall of care about this issue and be a bit empathetic is fine. The execution of the messaging was terrible, and therefore made me dislike the episode. Russell, you can't write endings, mate. It's happened a few times now with some of the specials for David Tennant, and is continuing into Gatwa's run, unfortunately. But Gatwa and Millie Gibson are doing a fantastic job with acting. I do not blame the actors. This is fully on the script, in my opinion, so far. But anyway, so I didn't like the first episode, as I've just spent 10 minutes explaining. Let's get on to episode 2, The Devil's Chord. For an episode about the Beatles, it was nowhere near as engaging as I hoped it would be, and they weren't that interesting or in the plot long enough to be allowed to be interesting based on the script. So again, Russell's script needed work here. So it was nowhere near as engaging as I hoped. The plot in concept is fine, the execution in the script on paper, it's underwhelming. But why didn't I like The Devil's Chord? I want to state plainly that this wasn't to do with the fact that a drag queen was in it. I just personally found their acting bad. Like, they didn't give the same villainous acting as an entity like the Giggle. Mind you, in fairness, Russell T Davies did not do the Jinx, I believe their name is. Jinx any favour, the drag queen any favours, because when they were trying to act out their part, they're up against Neil Patrick Harris, who played the Giggle. It was nowhere near as intimidating, nowhere near as engaging. It was off the walls and batty nuggets, but the off the wallness just seemed too much. They felt like they were overacting, over pushing it, and at some point just making weird noises that really didn't need to be there. And just as a villain, they were overacting, and it's meant to be off the walls batty nuggets, but it was too off the walls and not very engaging for that reason as a villain. Also, one thing I do want to point out, because I think it's dumb, not because it was done in the episode, but because it could have been done so much more easily, in my opinion. Like, they were trying to explain that because they are literally the embodiment of a concept of music, and they will hate music not being theirs, and they want to aid what music can and can't coexist, and they just got very, very pissed and wanted to take music from the world. They go, I'm them, to someone in like the 1900s or 1800s even. And of course, someone there is not going to understand what that is. It's like, who are you? No, who are you? I'm them. And they look at them dumbfounded and don't know what to say. And it's like, of course someone in history is not going to know what to say. They didn't really explain it either. They could have really used that as, no, non-binary means I don't fit into any gender. They could have at least given an explanation. If they're going to include the concept, give an explanation, and then I don't think someone of that time period would have been accepting. So I think the better way to do it would have been have it in the modern day, I'm them, have someone confused, and then have them explain it to them, and then attack them because they're playing music. But have them actually explain the messaging, the non-binary nature, and people say it wasn't that, they're just them because they are a concept of chaotic music, they're not as gendered as others would be. But it's like, well, yeah, but they were obviously using the non-binary angle there, in my opinion, and they could have explained it so much better, going to a time period where no one knows what that is because it wasn't socially acceptable, or even potentially even socially conceived at that point. Why would anyone react any differently? because they're not going to know what that is. It was just so dumb. I understand the intent of the message. Again, the message's execution is fucked up by the time period and not explained well either. It was interesting to see the world without music, see Ruby see the consequences of, well, we can just stop it because the world doesn't end like this. Taking her back to 2024 and seeing the destroyed remains, the ruins, and then still seeing, what was the name of the villain again? Oh god, the Maestro. Sorry, my brain died for a second. The Maestro, still seeing the Maestro there and chasing after them and all that was very interesting. And you know, Ruby learning the rules, the consequences, and the general thing of a world without music and the chaos that caused, the sadness it caused. It was good. I just don't think the villain ruined it for me, because the villain is not a good villain actor, in my opinion. No offense to the actor, but the script was also meant to be off the wall, so perhaps they didn't know what to work with, and then the direction wasn't good. There were many factors here. The script wanted an off the wall villain. The actor wasn't up to, the actor or actress, or whatever the correct term would be, was not up to task. Not their fault, I don't think. It's just, it was a difficult villain to pull off, and you're up against someone like Neil Patrick Harris in comparison, I think. So, yeah, not entirely their fault, and no shade intended. But, yeah, the villain did not grab me or work for me this episode, and the concept didn't feel well executed with messaging. The music sadness in the world was well executed, but it wasn't as well executed in terms of the magical elements, the giggle, the end of the universe game thing, the magical elements, and the Maestro wasn't as well executed as, say, Season 3's William Shakespeare episode Love Labours 1. Like, they had creatures that delved into magic and considered it a different side of the coin to science, and I feel the explanation there was far more well executed and led me into the episode more, and definitely allowed me to go with the plot and felt more engaging, whereas the explanations here did not do that for me. Again, I'm just one person. If you enjoyed the episode, I'm glad, because I'm still a fan of Doctor Who. I'm still reviewing it, for God's sake. If I wasn't a fan, I wouldn't be hoping for it to get better. I would just go, well, this is terrible, and not give my reasons. But anyway, there were elements of the episode I liked, but personally few. For example, the natural element of Ruby knowing couples of different sexuality and talking about her friends. That was just a nice way of sprinkling in some diversity without making it a big thing. And it's just like, yeah, in the modern world, you know, people of all different types of creeds and sexualities. It was just normal, and it was fine to have that woven in. It wasn't beaten over the head. It felt they naturally discussed it, and yeah, it just worked. We saw a bit of the Beatles, but they were kind of used as a gimmick. If we saw more of them, it would have been cool. And then they had the thing of there's always a twist at the end, the musical thing, which I thought was kind of just dumb. And it doesn't need to be a musical in Doctor Who, but I guess it works for the episode's tone. But actually, upon retrospect, I think there's always a twist at the end. And there was that creepy kid helping the Maestro out. I think they were in the background. So I think the kid, the herald of the Maestro, and the Maestro are still kicking somehow, like the Doctor hasn't won. And a friend of mine has a theory on that I'll discuss, potentially bringing him on if he wishes to. If not, I will discuss it and give full credit to him. Possibly these theories are already floating around, but I haven't looked at other people's theory crafting. But yeah, I think the Maestro is still kicking around, one way or another, whether I like there was a villain or not. So I think the end part could have some more relevance, therefore I forgive it and do actually enjoy it, but at first I wasn't a fan, but I do forgive it because I think there's more relevance for the end bit. Again, I liked that Ruby was learning the rules of time travel. Being done by taking her home and the Doctor just showing her was actually a really impactful scene. A really good scene to establish rules, even though they seem to be throwing most of those rules out the window. And the Doctor and Ruby interacting in general I really liked in this episode. It was good for character building. They seemed to get on well with each other and have an interesting dynamic. Costume changes seems like quite a fun dynamic as well. And the Doctor changing their outfit I enjoyed as well. But the actual plot from the episode just seemed like it had no flow, no follow through, no through line. Things just kind of happened too fast, including the resolution to the plan, which seems to be a pattern with Russell T Davies again, not being able to write endings. What's up with it? The resolution was just the Beatles wandered along and things got better, but I don't understand why or how. It just sort of came out of bloody nowhere. And Russell, yeah, you can't write endings from the Star Beast to now. You're really struggling there, mate. So, apologies. You are a good writer. You brought back Doctor Who, for goodness sake. But yeah, it's really clear that you seem to have just got lazy or given up with endings at this point. So yeah, I will end by saying that the villain didn't personally grab me because I never fully understood why, if they were... Like, how would they benefit as a force of music by getting rid of music? But perhaps, just like the Toymaker liked controlling games, they like controlling music, but getting rid of it and obliterating it from the earth seems different to controlling it for me. They may have tried to... I think they did try to explain that they think music is theirs, but I didn't feel the explanation really worked for me, especially when compared to Doctor Who and its use of magic before, with Love Labour's One and William Shakespeare again. Really simple ways of engaging, and again, the William Shakespeare episode had really simple ways of engaging, and even the goblin magical stuff and the goblin magical science kind of things from the Church on Ruby Road, that was better explained. But yeah, I don't know, I just didn't feel a sense of flow or explanation here. It wasn't as much fun with the Beatles being involved in the episode as I was expecting. I feel like it tried to do too much with scenes it had. Scenes felt like they just happened as a result, and most of the scenes fell flat. And everything just felt a bit all over the place. I think the actors did a good job with what they were given, and the villainous actor was just overtaxed with what their capabilities were. Apologies. But they weren't given a hell of a lot to work with, and what they were given to work with didn't flow at all. It just didn't grab me, and personally, so I have absolutely nothing more to really talk about. Just feels like a bit of a letdown for the first two episodes, and trying to tie things together to the Toymaker and everything just wasn't engaging in this occasion for me. So I have nothing too much more of value to say. It just didn't flow well, the plot seemed inconsistent or not very motivated, moved too quickly, and the part of the villain didn't really work. And the whole twist at the end may have a meaning, so I do kind of forgive it now, and it does bring my theory crafting brain into gear. So again, I have a few theories, a friend has a few theories. I might ask if he wants to come on and discuss it at some point. Ruby's singing was alright, and I think the hidden song thing hints towards some stuff which, again, that'll be me theory crafting. So I must give this episode credit for making me theory craft, but aside from a few scenes that did engage me, this was just not very good. And yeah, the resolution coming out of nowhere was just the thing that cherry on top of this does not work for me. So I've not much to say about episode 2, The Devil's Chord, but what did you guys think of it anyway? Well, that's the end of the video, guys. You can go now.